Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. This is the Postmortem for Game 17, Itty Critter Grims vs Miskatonic Wizards. This is the first game in Round 2. Itty Critter Grims won both games with a score of 16-14 and 17-15. And honestly, both of those games were absolute nail-biters. In fact, Itty Critter Grims, despite being the number 1 seed and my pick to win the entire tournament, have not had an easy road. They haven't lost yet, but they haven't won by a significant margin. Every game has been incredibly close. At least 3 of the games were going to be won by the opposing team on the next turn. And honestly, I just want more from them. I'm starting to get a little bit worried about them. I still think that they're absolutely fantastic. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword. When you're creating these teams, you want parity as much as possible. You really want it to be that any team can beat any other team. At the same time, you do want to have a blowout every now and then, particularly with your top-seeded teams, because it means that you seeded accordingly and that, matchup actually matters and it keeps people guessing. Well, unfortunately, Itty Critter Grims has yet to have that moment. I really want them to have a statement game where they just completely shut down the other team and show their absolute strength and verify why they were the number 1 seed. If you remember, 4 of us voted them number 1, and it was funny because it was the first 4, myself, Blackjack, Chucky's Cookie, and Smashness, and I thought this is going to be a piece of cake because we all agreed on the number 1 seed. Then other people started to, rate them lower, and I started to wonder, am I overrating them or are they being underrated? Is it somewhere in between? And right now, it seems like the justification for ranking them number 1 may be a little bit lacking, even though there are signs that they're really putting it together. When I say that I want a statement game, where they're winning by 4 or 5 points, that they're never really losing or anything like that. Someone has pointed out that, game 2 of this round could easily be a statement game because they overcame a 5-point deficit to take the lead in extras. And that's true to an extent, and I definitely agree there. But I just wish that it was the opposite, that, instead of overcoming the 5-point deficit, they're creating the 5-point deficit. But there's still plenty of time. We have round 3. We don't know who they're going to face in round 3. So really anything can happen. Or they can get obliterated in round 3. It's matchup. Anything can happen. As far as this actual matchup, there was a number of interesting things about it. First, both teams had Titans. And this is significant because both Titans can be fairly difficult to bring back if they were to lose a Clash of the Titans. For Rainbow Rock, there's only select moments when it can come out. You have to win our base, or you have to play Evolution. Usually I'll lead with Evolution if I'm playing Itty Critter Grims, because it'll make it easier to use Rainbow Rock for the long haul, and you don't have to worry about winning the first base. He could be the thing that enables you to win the first base. Of course, then you need to win another base in order to bring him back out. So if he gets clashed, you're pretty much forced to play Evolution or forced to win another base. And if he's a big part of why you're winning a base, well, then obviously that's a chicken and egg problem. The Wizard Titan, on the other hand, it's strange to say that he is more replayable because it requires 5 cards. But the point is that you can technically get it for free. All you need to do is play the requisite amount of cards, and he can be brought out as many times even after he's clashed. You can use him to break a base. If you can bring 5 other cards back into play, you can bring him right back out again. And he is very good for this team. One of the things that's crazy about Miskatonic Wizards is just how many times they can actually play 5 cards in a turn. When you use Gate to the Beyond to get an extra minion play, and you have Professor, that's 3 plays right there. Combine that with your regular minion and your regular action, and you're set. You can see them in advance. And that way you're just bursting on the current base, use the Titan, and then you can just bring it back out again. What's really funny is that there's so much that they can do in a burst, Miskatonic Wizards, and they have to rely on their deck cycling in order to get back those cards. I think I made the analogy before that they remind me of the Cyclone magazine discharge from Perfect Dark, where you just got a 50 clip, and then you just fire everything, and you break a base and then you reload and you move on. And that's pretty much what's happened. The way that this team has been played was very aggressive, knowing that they can get their cards back. If you can stall them, that will hurt them a little bit more because they're using their extra plays for more presence, usually to bring out the Titan, but there's only so many times that they can use their extra plays unless it's going to be renewable, like with Gate to the Beyond. And both teams have something that can be used to counter the other. 80 Critter Grims can rely a lot on play on base actions to set up some powerful things. Grimm's Blessing is something you want to seed in advance. 80pedia is something you want to seed in advance. You wouldn't use necessarily multiple copies of that on the same base, definitely not Grimm's Blessing, although you might for 80pedia. But you could easily do 80pedia and Grimm's Blessing on the same base. Well, those meddling kids can take it out. If you have Gate to the Beyond can be very annoying because it gives you madness that can enable powerful plays later. It gives you a card which can be useful for the Arcane Protector, that might be another power, and it gives you an extra minion play. You might want to consider axing that with the Woodsman's Axe. You have that option if you're 80 Critter Grims. But what stood out more than anything about these games is the thing that I've been saying about 80 Critter Grims all along, and that's their recursion. They can slow you down, and they can be slowed down, but ultimately they are built to last. If I destroy your minion, your low-powered minions on the Wizards, with Shell Shock, or if I move them with Tadpor, they're pretty much going to be stuck. It would seem to be expensive to use a Critter Coach to do that, but the point is that I have better recursion. If you remember, this team has infinite recursion because they have Leaferoo, which can shuffle in a card. They have another Story, which can shuffle in up to 3 cards. They have Rainbow Rock, which can shuffle back in Leaferoo. It's a really big cycle, and you don't have to worry about using your best cards because you know that you will get them back. Where they've been struggling and why they haven't had dominant victories is that they may not be getting the cards in the order that they need. Something that's become very clear, we knew this going in, but it became really pronounced during the tournament, is how much you need to be situally aware of both your deck and your discard with 80 Critter Grims. There are certain cards that you want to be in your discard pile. You need Frog Prince to have good targets. If you read some of the logs, you see that Frog Prince is usually the MVP because he gets played 3 or 4 times. That's an instant way of getting access in your discard pile. It can be turned into a Critter Coach or Critter Champion. That could be at least 6 or 7 power in support of another play. Particularly if you use something like I Select You to grab Frog Prince, then you could easily switch that with a Critter Coach as your regular minion play. You get a Coach or a Champion back from the discard pile, and that's 16 power right there. You'll notice that, you've got Frog Prince back in the deck. He's a form of recursion. You got the minion from the discard pile, which is a form of recursion, and it's pretty renewable. It's really just the action triggers that you need. Teamwork is also a form of recursion because it plays from the discard pile. You need to worry about over-diluting your deck and shuffling in too many cards with this team, in all honesty. You might want to leave Prince, one of the princes or Prince Charming in the discard pile because Teamwork can grab it from the discard pile. If you use Charming Princess to play Teamwork to play Prince Charming, well, then you only need 2 of those cards, typically Teamwork, to go back in. If you recur too much, yes, you'll increase the chance of drawing one or the other, but you may not draw Teamwork, in which case it's pretty much lost unless you're going to use Grimm's Blessing. At the same time, Wizards Miskatonic University are so fast. Both teams do have 0 to breakpoint potential, but Idis is just faster. And you saw that with the solo bases that they used in order to claw back into this game. That's what's going to carry them going forward, and especially against a setup-heavy team. If you can just do what you can to ensure a second place and not even try to compete, and then use your big guns on a solo base, that's going to carry them far into the tournament. Of course, it hasn't worked out that way so far in its entirety, but I'm still confident, and though I really like Wizards Miskatonic University, I won't say that I'll miss them, because obviously I need 80 Critter Grims to go as far as possible. So that's a postmortem for Game 17. 2 very closely matched teams, 2 very fast teams, but the more consistent of the 2 is the one that will pull ahead. We'll see you tomorrow for Postmortem on Game 18. Let's shut it down.